Well, Helima Croft is a senior geopolitical strategist within commodities research at Barclays Capital. She's served as an intelligence fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations and also as a senior economic analyst for the CIA. And Helima joins us now from her firm in New York to discuss the underlying themes of this week's OPEC meeting. And Helima, I mean, perhaps we have not seen so many tensions around an OPEC meeting in recent history because there is a lot going on in the what I would call the backstory here. So tell us, everyone's eyes are focused on Saudi Arabia, and they're in a situation where they need the price of oil to be at a certain level higher than a target that we might like to balance their own budget.
Absolutely, and I think it is a story that hasn't gotten a lot of attention. One of the big sort of knock-on effects from the Arab awakening this spring is that what we think the Saudis need to balance their budget has risen from around $70 to $75 a barrel to around $91 to $97 a barrel. Because since March, they've done around $130 billion in new domestic spending to keep their citizens content. So with those spending levels, we think the Saudis just need a much higher price of oil to balance their budget. Now, of course, they could draw down their reserves. They have very large foreign reserves, but the Saudis don't like to run deficits. So we think the Saudis are entering OPEC much more comfortable in the sort of $90 to $100 price range than in previous meetings.
Now, Helima, the countries, right, the 11 countries that are sort of the voting countries in OPEC, they're already producing more oil than their quotas mandate, right? So in some sense, people are watching to see whether or not they raise the quotas to match what they're already producing. Is that true?
Absolutely. So we think that the bigger story is not the sort of change in quotas, because as you said, they're going to raise them to where actual production is now. The big question is, are we going to see any big additions in new production coming on? And I think that's where all eyes are on the Saudis. Now, there have been reports that the Saudis are going to basically increase production by, 200,000 up to 500,000 barrels a day. So that's led to some speculation that the Saudis want to rein in prices. Our view, however, is the Saudis are going to increase production, but that will be mainly to deal with local power generation needs. They have a new refinery coming back on that takes around 400,000 barrels. So we think that the new additional production is really for the domestic market, not for the export market.
And is that the way that they'll actually be able to control the price of oil? Because right now we are starting to get some stats on the demand side, right? The International Energy Agency has trimmed back its estimate of oil demand growth for 2011. We see demand dropping off, and it's sort of one follows the other. We see oil prices rise, and all of a sudden demand drops off. So how can Saudi Arabia actually control the price while increasing production?
Well, we actually think that demand has remained robust, particularly in Asia. So we actually think there will need to be new supplies coming onto the market to actually keep it balanced. So our concern is that if Saudi doesn't add for, beyond the sort of 400,000 for the domestic market, if they don't add more for the export market, we will be in a constrained supply situation. Because the situation in Libya, those 1.3 million barrels of lost Libyan production have not been replaced. And on top of that, we have 260,000 barrels of Yemen's production offline now. So we're in a situation of much tighter spare capacity margins. So our concern is that the Saudis, if they don't come more actively onto the market, if they don't come out with an actual statement about wanting to curb prices, we think that we could actually have a movement higher as we get to the end of the year.
All right. Thanks so much, Helima. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Do appreciate the insight. That was Helima Croft of Barclays Capital giving us a preview of what we could see coming out of that OPEC meeting. Of course, all eyes on Saudi Arabia and a statement it may or may not make.